Mhm. Let's see here. Come on in. Oh, yeah.
How do you do?
Good.
Where should I go?
Right here.
Okay.
You gotta be on the screen. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Here's the minute.
Good. Anything I missed or made a mistake on?
I just wanted to edit this sentence. Susie states that the FinCom is a facilitator of providing resources to town departments to meet the needs of the town. I feel like
Okay.
that's where their information comes from. And
Okay.
and then this one. Oh, it's here. I read this piece again because it talks about this. If I just read this paragraph, it says, typically, a municipality must increase its minimum local contribution for education by at least this growth factor percentage, thus ensuring the schools receive their fair share of increasing revenues. And so that's what I had thought about. And I thought, so when we get a pilot for the Wheelock,
Yeah.
that would be one. And then the 2.5, that'd be another part. So then I realized this goes on when it says the municipal revenue growth factor calculation is based on the combined percentage increase of 3 separate things. And then it goes on and explains those 3. So I believe from reading on that the state incorporates this factor when it goes into the state aid formula, that it's using this number, and this number as part of that long
Yeah.
formula. And that's when it that's when it gets enacted. So if it shows up in general revenue sharing or unrestricted local receipts, which the pilot, the pilot, I think falls under here, then it knows what this factor will be. The state knows. So I didn't realize that the first time I read it. I'm not 100% sure because I'm.
So tell me why does this matter in terms of school choice? How does this connect to that?
It was only in terms of our understanding of what school funding consists of. And I wanted to make sure that when we're looking at one part of the picture, which was school choice funding, we also understood the state gives us an obligation in other areas too. Because part of understanding school choice is understanding the state's intent for funding schools. And we were working on that, but I wanted to recognize that that sits in a bigger picture of other ways the state says, this is our intent, this is how we're going to carry it out.
Yeah, the thing that I brought in, which I think is not necessarily directly related to this, is that the state has a minimum required amount that the community should spend on education.
Right.
And that's specifically referred to in the school choice things that I see.
Yeah. And that information of them setting up what that minimum is connected to this in this.
Yeah,
context.
it's connected to the same formula that we have for 78 and also the statutory,
Right.
which is basically evaluating the ability to pay
Right.
of a community.
Right.
So it's like a progressive aspect.
Yeah.
Saying, look, first of all, no matter who you are, you have to spend a specific amount of proportionally of your
revenue
towards education.
Right.
Or at least a specific amount. And maybe it's proportional to your revenue, maybe it's to your ability to pay
Right.
as a community because of that formula that you're referring to. I think that's the minimum required amount.
Right.
So that is addressed with the school choice, as I understand it, in this way. You can't use the school choice money to subsidize that. You have to pay the minimum amount before your school choice.
Right.
So that some cheapskate towns
Right.
might try to use the school choice as a way to fund the minimum amount. You cannot do that.
Right.
So we both understand that.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to point out, and so I wanted to add that it was cited from the Association of Town Finance Committee Handbooks, page 32, was to recognize that the state's addressing funding for schools in multiple places with an intent. And those intents overlap right there. It's saying you can't use school choice money to reach your minimum contribution, but it also says that your minimum contribution is driven by the revenues in your town, and it has, and your revenue, your allocation to the school budget has to go up by whatever your revenues went up, and then it cites the three places.
It does say that. Huh? Yeah.
Right here.
Okay, well, I'll look. I'll read it.
Yeah. And
so
this, I don't know if you have this book.
Well, I can get that uploaded from the town hall, from the town.
Good luck, because they told me that this cannot be posted on our webpage.
Really?
Yes. So then I can't remember the dots that went after that.
Can you scan that page and send it to me?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. I find this book to help connect some of the pieces, because otherwise there's just too many pieces on the table.
Yeah.
So that was that. So other than that, that's good. Do you want me to edit this and send it to Grace, because it has to be posted?
Yeah, just if you want to,
Yeah.
I can do that. I'll just give you the edits. I'll do it and send it there.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I'm used to doing that too.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what you can do. So information that we gathered.
So maybe you should give me the sentence you want, though. Just send it to me. So
Okay.
because I'm not sure I know that I would I would do it right.
Okay. All right.
Then I'll have to approve it, just so that because it's our minutes. So,
Yeah. So we'll just say that those minutes are approved as edited.
Yeah.
So be it. So then getting information, were you able to get a hold of Bruce and talk to him?
I finally talked to him this morning. I
Oh,
called
good.
him. But, he's a rather obtuse figure. I didn't get any specific. I tried to ask him specific questions. But
Mm-hmm,
basically, we had a chat
mm-hmm,
and we went around the mulberry bush with the whole thing, like this, and
Mhm.
then the other end, and then there's this, and this other.
mm-hmm.
I said, well, here's the question I have for you. If Leverett has it as in their budget document that supports the budget, I don't know the details, but I'm assuming that there's a revolving account and that some portion of it has been applied to the budget. He said, that's true, that's true. I said, well, how is that determination made?
Mhm.
And he answered me for great length, but I never got,
Hmm.
he never gave me the answer that I could understand. So then I asked him again, I asked him about 3 times. But he said, I said, well, then why, how does it work? Then how do we sort this out? And I did say to him, I'm just trying to have a conversation so that I can go forward and have better understanding of everybody's perspective on this,
Uh-huh.
But I didn't, I talked to him, he said he'd be willing at some stage in the future to meet with the school committee, with the finance committee, so
Okay,
I think that, just leaving that conversation aside, I think that that's what I think is probably a good idea
uh-huh.
for the FinCom, maybe this subcommittee, but maybe the FinCom, to meet with the school committee
Okay, well,
some stage in the fall, before the budget comes together.
right, so we talked about I guess it was here. My view was that we can communicate to the school committee and ask them to come up with a policy. And then from that, we went through the idea of gathering policy information to give to them. So I still see it as giving it to them and having them work on it first. And whether we need to start off with a large group or a small group, I'm not that concerned about yet. But you're down here is talking more about it coming from the FinCom.
Well, let me just say about that issue, I think we have different responsibilities than the school committee, and that's the way it's designed, the way our government's designed.
Mhm.
The way everybody has their own point of view. What works best is for everybody to take their own responsibility, be it as it may, and to have good collegial relations, but there is checks and balances involved with it. It's like, if I'm from any department, if I'm from the building committee and I'm saying, I would like to have $25,000 this year because I think we need to do some work. And the finance committee says to me, well, it's not in the budget. You have to ask, they might tell me, their guidance might be to give me allocate a reduced amount. That's
I don't think
entirely
they,
proper.
and I disagree with that analogy because I believe the school committee in multiple ways shows more autonomy. And so I believe that this policy comes from them and we hear about it, but and so then I went to these other, so here's Hadley's.
Okay, let me just write. Am I keeping notes?
Well, actually, I was going to offer to take a turn. You want me to take a turn?
Yeah, but somebody should. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's happening.
Okay, so it's the Genesis.
You just made a statement of your opinion about the autonomy of the school committee versus other departments or something like that.
Genesis of school policy. And you use the analogy of other departments. And I disagree because I see autonomy of school committee. Okay, so here's what I found. Here's the Hadley. So this is fun to do this kind of research to me because Hadley had it on their school committee page.
So they have a policy.
So they have a policy. The policy is on school choice spending is that a portion of the school choice funds will be used to support the district's annual operating budget to provide comprehensive programming to choice and non-choice students. School choice funds can be used for capital improvement projects to enhance education within the DOR policy, as long as the school committee is operating from a prioritized and endorsed capital improvement plan. Prior to authorizing the expenditure of any school choice funds held by the district, the school committee will ensure maintenance of the reserve approximately equal to the prior year's grant monies received. Blee, blah, blue. Then
Yeah.
it goes on. So that's, a simple framing. It doesn't say you have to know a certain one-time expense project that you're paying it for. You can have some specifics, but you can also hold this policy line that the maintenance of the reserve will be equal to the prior year's.
That's their policy, right?
Yeah, that's your policy. So we
The
went over
only
the
thing I have a
Hadley.
question about this policy, and I don't have it on the tip of my tongue, but I thought there was a specific prohibition of using choice money for capital.
They
improvement.
said within the DOR policy.
Yeah.
And there is a DOR policy and they follow it. So they are going, so the school committees create a policy for themselves that reads the DOR parameters, comes up with a plan, and has an overarching limit. And yeah, so DOR says you can do a computer, you could build a computer lab, you could do, it has some other example, science lab. You can build things. It's just, they have parameters, and Hadley recognized, having read the policy, that that was what it was. So, then I checked in with Deerfield, which is Union 38, actually, yeah, Union 38. So the guy over there, I don't know what his role is. Is he superintendent, Modesto. And he says, the basic guidance I can give you is that we try not to use school choice spending to pay for reoccurring costs such as personnel, unless it's a special education related direct reimbursement for the school choice program, students IEP. We use general choice money for one-off expenses such as technology or smaller capital projects. We also try not to spend the current year's revenue. We call it year in the rear spending. So we are using last year's monies when we talk about school choice, not budgeting the current year's expected income that the general budget is built from. By no means are we perfect in this practice. There are times we use school choice funds for budget deficits and to lower the overall budget. This is the superintendent. However, when we do this, we are publicly open that this is not the best practice. And this person, I did
She must be the
notify her.
she's the
Here she
financial
is.
director.
Yeah, and she did not get back to me specifically. So he cited the policy, and it's again, pretty much the two elements at Hadley. We can do it for capital projects if we need to, if they follow within the guidelines, and we spend up to last year's allocation. And it could be for a deficit, but that is not the best practice. It's mostly meant to be these two other considerations. So he's the superintendent. He probably helps some of the setup of what the school's doing. So that was that one. That's Deerfield.
Okay. You send me that, a copy of that email?
Yeah. And then I got a hold of Amherst. So I sent it to Doug and Mike. Yep, Mike said, yep, talk to Doug. In all three districts, Amherst, Pelham, and the region. Oh, I hate this. Oh, I should have looked. Whatever that says.
Oh, I see. So it's not using it for, oh, okay, you better get the
I have
whole
to go
email.
get it. Yeah.
That's like, wait, what's that
these.
like? It's Jeopardy or something.
Yeah.
I know that.
Okay, when is this? Well,
That's going
I'll
to-
find it.
Mm.
I read it. Then I printed it. But I hate that. Oh, where is it? It's in here. That's my computer in here. So open it up and I look and see nobody's on, and go to this. Go to, oh, did I send that from here? Oh. So very helpful. New tab. This one. Oh, this will be easy to find that because we have a lot on here. Doug. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What is this? I've forgotten. I loved leaving my job because it was stuff I never had to remember again. Control P. This time it'll print it all the way out. If you print off of one prompt, it works. If you print off another one, it doesn't. Okay, more settings. Okay, we'll go back to read it. In all three districts, we have applied school choice revenue in large part to expenses that benefit all students at the elementary level, payroll and benefit expenses for classroom teaching staff at the secondary, payroll and benefit expenses for math teaching staff. Some of the school choice revenue is related to covering the cost of special ed costs for some of the school choice students. As a result, depending on the circumstances for a particular year, we will apply some of the revenue to lower the special ed costs. Again, this is mostly applied to staffing costs. With regard to our approach to how much school choice revenues we use, we try to maintain a reasonable balance in our revolving fund, typically about an average year's worth of revenue. However, the reason we keep a balance is to mitigate any significant negative changes in the school choice enrollment and the subsequent revenues, or to augment the support from the town. So they have a policy and it's averaging a year's revenue, and it is applied to things like staffing and benefits and sped needs that choice students are bringing in when they come.
But yeah, but if you read the document, it just supports the budget as a revenue stream. Then the school committee and the school administration has they're the ones that they're in the weeds with the budget and how different
Right,
parts of it are spent.
but they're guided by this principle, this policy. And that's Amherst. And so the commonality is that they all put in about what the previous year's, or an average way, revenue from the previous year. That's a blanket approach.
Yeah,
That's what I distilled out of it.
What I've discovered from my research so far is that every town that I've contacted does put it in the budget as a supporting revenue. And you're right, I've learned about the revolving fund, and I understand the concept very well about, because it's an unreliable source of revenue, that they should keep a reserve. And I think equal to 1 year is probably a very reasonable concept.
Right.
But still, if you look at their budget, you're going to see some portion of that school choice as supporting the budget.
Right.
And that's really, I think that's pretty
And
much,
I don't think we're going to have an argument.
I think that's pretty much universal.
Right, I do too. So in this kind of numbers, looking at how Sunderland, Amherst, Pelham, Athol, Royalston, and Deerfield did it, this is their revenues from, and here's choice, and here's there's expenditures down here. So I just feel like it's a very simple case of giving this information to our school committee and our financial director and our superintendent, and saying, here are some examples of school choice funding policies, and we would like to have you look at them and come up with a policy, and we'll have a discussion. I find it case closed.
Well, I don't have any problem with that. I think that the thing that's happened here historically now on this issue is that we have been very late to this game. you
Yeah.
know? So we don't know.
Right.
None of us. people-
Right.
Dan Hayes,
Right.
principal, me,
Right.
you.
Right,
And so we're just getting it, we're getting up to speed of knowledge about how it works, how other towns do it.
right,
We can write this down.
Yeah.
We can have some kind of report.
Yeah.
And have attached documents that
mhm,
support the report.
Yeah.
And I think we should have another meeting and we should prepare some kind of a draft of that, maybe. And I think we should suggest, I personally would support that we suggest that we have a kind of a joint meeting with the school board, school committee. And just to have, maybe after they've discussed it by themselves without us around,
yeah,
so that they can go over, maybe this information could be forwarded to them first, so they could have,
Yeah.
look at, you
Yeah.
think that makes sense?
yeah. And so I think it's important to establish a sense of respect for their policymaking endeavor, and to see whatever they retain as that they have a policy to do it. That's all. Yeah, and like you said, I believe it's about people only just starting to come to this.
I do think, my concept of the way our government works, should work, whatever, isn't that it should be really adversarial, and it should be collegial. We all have the same goals. We have different perspectives
Mhm,
and we have different responsibilities.
mhm,
And that's the way it's designed. When it
mhm.
works best, there is some exchange, some disagreement, resolution, and that's the way it's supposed to work. So it's not, to me, I don't feel if someone disagrees with me or if I disagree with somebody, that it's necessarily a personal attack on that person. It's about the ideas, about the policies, it's not about the people.
Okay, but I guess I still think there's some underlying forces here. I mean, so at our last meeting, you called it a slush fund. Well, that's a pejorative term. Oh, I just did that. God, maybe not. Here it is. And so that's the kind of stuff I want to take out of this situation. I don't see it that way. I see that the schools have an ebb and flow of school choice money. And one of the things I read when I was looking at this is state views this as an empty seat filler. That it allowed towns to fill empty seats. That's why they kind of came up with $5,000 as the reimbursement rate. So we have the state as a player trying to do things, good or bad. That's what they think they're doing. We have the school trying to manage the school, and they were new to the game. And I guess I would do the one more piece in this that nobody's mentioning in these documents. They might do it anyways. Is that it would be good for the school to recognize and acknowledge what the what do you call it, what the amount in the fund is each year, so they keep track, so they see it.
Yeah, well, it should be public information to everybody.
Yeah, well, but more that it's a process of them acknowledging what's there, having a policy, and executing the plan. That's what I see.
Let me just give you, maybe I already done this, but I'll give you a historical background from my point of view on this subject. That I think was 2007.
Yeah, you did that last meeting. I do know. I know what you're saying. And so out of that came today's statement where you're saying they are coming late to the game. They can use this information to develop something. They can implement it in their annual budget, including knowing how much they started with.
But it's part of my original point in 2018 or 17, whatever it was that it should be supporting the budget. And there was a vociferous pushback on the part of, I think, Becky and I don't know who else, but to say the finance committee couldn't even discuss this money. It was completely of an amount that they could just handle discretionarily, whatever they wanted. The budget, because what the finance committee did that year, I think Eric was the chair. Eric and George were chair. They just said, oh, the school choice money is coming in. Okay, we'll just take that off the budget. And
Yeah,
what-
I remember this. It's on the recording. I know what you're talking about, but I believe that that is a process of, when this policy is drawn up, that is who is in charge. They are in charge of the policy, and they just need to make the policy and they need to enact it. And so that us stumbling into it didn't have clarity. Yeah, that's the way volunteers learn how to do things. And our town did not, I don't remember what the years for these, but it goes pretty far back. We didn't start doing it till later. We didn't understand all the aspects of it. Neither did the school, and we're asking them to understand it, and we're clarifying that they are the people who create the policy and enact it. That last part is somewhat from what the history was saying. Yeah, it's not our money, but we can help them, urge them to have a policy and to use it. And that's all I think is up for debate right now, or it's not even debatable.
Oh, it's also not debatable from my point of view. This is paid to repeat myself, but it doesn't seem like you're understanding what I'm saying. That money should be accounted for when we allocate or make a recommendation for allocation. That's what I wanted.
Well, it will. I mean, this process of what these people do is they, quote, put it in their budget.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what I wanted at the beginning, Susie.
I understand that you are affronted by the fact that when you said that before, you got a different answer. I feel I'm not going to deal with the history, and I'm not going to be able to change the history. What I can do is say, oh, what kind of policies do people have? Can our school committee get this policy together? Can we roll it forward? And that's what I think we've done. I think we have the pieces to do that.
And I do too. I just want to be sure that you understand. I do think, and I take my responsibility as a member of our committee seriously. And so we have responsibilities too. They have their responsibilities, which are different than ours. So
they are different. And so what I feel like, and this sort of fits into what I said I felt was the role of the FinCom, it's to be the facilitator for finding resources for town departments to meet the needs of the town. So now I feel settled that this is a resource. It can be used by that department. It can be a clear policy, and I believe they will do it. If we run into some other conflicted understanding, then we have to come back, but I don't believe we will. I think it will actually move right along. They could engage more of those funds if they have a project that they think fits under the DOR description and they want to get it going, and then they can do that project.
yeah, well, I don't think that you and I disagree about. I mean, we disagree. I think philosophically about the respective roles of the FinCom and the school committee. But on the subject of the school choice, I think we both agree, if I may say this, that it should be accounted for, and the school and the finance committee together. School can initiate a policy. Finance committee will, in all respect, probably approve it if it's reasonable. Will recommend what's in the budget if it includes this issue the way that these other towns do it. But our responsibility is to recommend a certain allocation to town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a department comes to us, they justify their request, and we look at it and we review it and we ask questions, and then we make our recommendation. And that's the way it's supposed to work, isn't that? Is that accurate?
I believe that the school will present a budget, and the finance committee can say, oh, look, right here, this is how much school choice money they're using in this budget. This is their final budget number. When we talk to the town, we can say, we were pleased to see that because they're using another resource. Yeah, that's how I see it.
I see it that way too.
Okay.
It's like if they get a grant from the federal
Yeah.
Department of Education.
Yeah.
We don't have any control over that, but if
No.
they have it, they apply it to their budget.
Right.
They might add something in their budget to use those funds,
Right.
and that's part of their budget.
Absolutely.
Revenue is shown in the revenue
Right.
side of the
Right.
budget. That's all.
Right. And so I think we're at an end. I feel like I can send you, I can scan these, not this one, can scan you these and then maybe make it a packet and send it to Bruce Turner and Dan Hayes.
Well, we have to have a report of statements of some sort. So we have to figure out.
Okay.
Do it out.
Okay, so so the draft of a statement, and it's using we would say something like, given our research for towns around us,
And on existing guidance from the state.
yeah. We recommend that the Shutesbury Elementary School look over these policies and draft one for our school. And we're sending this packet of information to these sort of players, and they can get back to us in a few months. I mean, they're not meeting until September.
No, exactly.
So maybe by, I mean, actually,
Before the budget.
before they give us the draft budget, which I
Right.
think last one was November.
Yeah.
Yeah, give us a statement, the guidelines of the policies they feel will work for our town. And then if they, I don't even know if we want it by the time they draft the budget, and if they want to have it, if they have any further questions or need for discussion, we're happy to do that.
That'd be neat.
Yeah, and that would be with the, and so that statement we would give to our own committee. And we can just look at that now. They can look at it. I mean, this was a process for me where I could go find the information. You and I could talk about it. We could do the next step. Then we just hand it to them and say, this is our
I
statement.
just wanted the statement to be read one by one.
Yeah,
It'll be
okay,
very
well, I'll
simple,
draft it.
just a few sentences,
Yeah.
and then the attached documents,
Mhm.
and maybe some other comments. So
Mhm.
we'll see. Write something up, start the ball rolling, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so in the agenda, it said something about, where did that go? Any other questions that this raises? I don't feel like there's any other questions
Well, there
for
is, yes,
me.
there is a very serious question I think we should raise. The future of school choice and what our philosophy is about school choice, because I think it's a big question. It's an overarching question, like, what is the school choice? Is it good for the town? Is it something we want to talk about I think there's some aspects to it that are very corrosive, because we're poaching students from other schools. I just think that
Bob, but where does that discussion get had?
it has to start on the school committee, because
Right,
they're the ones that approved this thing and I remember very well that when they said that they took a couple of students, they did it to fill some chairs.
Yeah.
And they thought that it would be better for the class to have a kind of an ideal size,
Mhm.
which makes perfect sense. Everybody understands that.
Mhm.
But then there's the greater issue, which is we have changing demographics and lower and declining enrollments in Western Mass, which are causing problems everywhere, not just Shutesbury, not just Pelham, some places worse than others. I saw that the census data was released 2 days ago in the Globe,
Mhm.
and it's all these towns, especially the poorest towns, they're losing population. Florida, Sheffield, Chester, all these
Right.
places, and they can't. When they lose population, they lose enrollment,
Right,
and when they lose enrollment, they lose Chapter 70 money, which is
Right.
a lot more than
Right.
school choice.
right,
So it's really a problem. I don't know what the solution is, but
right.
school choice is not the solution to it.
So here's their school choice policy. And I guess you're not asking for their policy, you're asking for the rationale. One aspect of it. So this to me would be not Bob Groves, FinCom person. It would be Bob Groves, concerned citizen, speaks to the school committee about their policy, the rationale for it, and the way.
I'm not objecting to it, I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, you would raise your concerns about the effects of school choice on the greater world, however big you want to decide that circle is. So we do know they have a policy. And
they like to keep their class size between 19 and 21 or something like that.
Well, the other piece that I think is actually quite valid is that they offer it to staff.
Yeah.
And I bet that's a perk for a staff person. And I bet it's a perk that helps keep the staff stable. Because there's so many reasons to not work here or there or wherever. Here's one to work in Shutesbury. And that's not a bad thing. Yeah, it's not a bad thing if it
costs money though.
If it creates stability.
But it's part of the benefit of being an employee of the town.
Right.
Again, I think that's good that we're getting school choice money. We didn't get it until a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the other issue besides the issue of poaching is that it's not sustainable. $5,000 a year doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like a place like Pelham, they're not a sustainable school right now. They haven't really.
Yeah, they're in a different situation.
Yeah.
And so in Shutesbury, is it sustainable? Probably, because the state designed this for X, and then it had to amend it for Y, which is, and towns can use it to fill empty seats. So the definition of an empty seat is you don't have to hire new staff. You don't have to expand your costs. You just have to maintain, because there's the heat and the lights and the
You also
weather.
don't play anybody off, so which is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But
But I don't know, I don't really want to go into this discussion with you, because I don't want to have another thing to figure out. Because I do think it's your concern, and you can bring it to the school committee as a citizen. And I don't think it is a finance committee discussion.
Well, it is, because we don't get as much money from school choice as we do from Chapter 70, so that's financial implications.
Those are not, how are those related?
Because if we have an enrollment, our enrollment is supported by the tax levy and by state aid. And we've always talked every year about how state aid's going down. What we don't seem to acknowledge, to my way of thinking, is that the reason it's going down is mainly because of our enrollment going down. The actual aid per student has gone up, but our general bottom line aid has gone down because, like so many other districts in the part of the state.
Why does a school choice acceptance lower the state aid?
It doesn't.
Right.
It just reduced the school choice is a very small part of the cost per student.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't think it affects it does not affect our state aid. So I feel like those questions you can take off the FinCom stage and bring it to the town, bring it to the school committee and ask them about them. And if it generates another line of inquiry, which that was what prompted this particular said, does it bring up further questions? And I believe you have a further question, but I don't believe it's a FinCom question until more stuff comes up about it. It doesn't sound like a FinCom question at this point to me. So I don't know if there's any other FinCom questions. So I would put in my notes that Bob has school choice questions that
just about the general
be addressed by the school committee.
It's a town-wide issue. It's not just there. It's a complicated issue, as you said, and it's a difficult one to get a grip on. Really,
I don't know if I did not say it was a difficult question to address. I don't want to do that work right now. I feel like it's work, and there's things we can choose to do. But I believe that the questions you're posing about poaching students and The differential in the 5,000 to the cost per pupil is something that begins with the school committee, and we know that they have a policy. And if there's questions that you feel this policy doesn't address or issues, then I think you need to take them up with them. But I do feel like what this originally started from has been addressed, and I don't know if there's any other questions.
I think that maybe you should, just like we said, you should put something together, just, you know, whip up something and then send it to me, and then we'll exchange. We can go over the phone or an email together, right? We'll do that later. Again.
Okay, that, and I will put the packet together, but I'll wait till we approve this sentence, this statement, and then our guess is that we send it after approval of statement.
Sounds good to me.
Send packet to U28 principal, school committee, FinCom. And that's probably all. U28, that's
The press.
Bruce and the
press.
super. And what's her name? Jennifer.
Yeah.
Okay, so we done?
Yeah. So your walls look really wonderful. Who's been fixing them up? Donald? David?
Oh, the outside walls,
yeah.
yeah. Donald did that
Yeah, yeah,
before
nice.
he blew out everything in
He
his
blew out his
body.
back?
His knees, his shoulders,
That'll do it.
he has none. He's working on dealing with that now.
Did he get a tractor finally?
He has a little thing, but that's not what,
He
it's
didn't get one in
wrestling,
time.
just wrestling.
Yeah. I
He's
know, I
re-wrestling
know.
a piece right now. It's like, really, Donald?
That's
But
terrible. That's
he's
too bad.
putting an addition on, so.
He is? Where?
Side, we're adding a screen porch and something else,
Nice.
bathroom. So
Great.
he had to redo some of his walls. Oh, no. Yeah,
All right, so we're adjourning?
yeah.
Pretty great.
Unless you got something else.
I don't,
This is 3:45.
pretty short meeting.
Yeah, and I'll get this out to you really soon because, oh, you're gonna go away
Going
next week.
Yeah.
But I'll get it out to you probably, which today? I'll get it out on Thursday.
All right, Susie, thanks.
Okay,
Have a good one.
yeah.